Good afternoon. I see that so many people are struggling very hard to stay awake, which I understand. I'm going to ask you a really fundamental question. Just look at me. What constitutes being here? Don't answer those students who have been taking course with me. I often use the formula, what constitutes X? So what would constitute your being here? Think about it. You don't have to, give a direct answer. Think about it, because it's not about your physical presence. What constitutes your presence would mean not just much more than your physical presence. So I would like to use the metaphor that God or the Bible teach us. Take your shoes off. Of course, this is a metaphor, so you don't have to actually take shoes you off. But I find it very interesting that why God asked Moses to take off his shoes. We usually think about sacred space as a kind of physical space. Usually people think of church, but no. This taking off, this metaphor taking off your shoes, it is about your state of being. So I hope you are able to take off your shoes, which means you are fully present and you detach yourself from your world. It is so that's how we make this space sacred. So I would invite you to take off your shoes, meaning that you detach yourself from the world that you have engaged in. Just forget about it. And fully present here means that you have to really make yourself available in many different ways. So think about it, what would constitute my being here at GETI and WCC? Because I know that we are about 200 people around, both faculty and students. But I think that each individual person, you would experience all different kind of things. Depends on how you think yourself as being fully present in this place and also the spaces that we are going to in Busan. So, and also second one that I wanted to think about is that what would constitute listening to a lecture or presentation? What do you do when you sit there and then listening to the lecture, Dr. Im and me? What does it mean to listen to a lecture or a presentation? What does it mean? I hope that, I do not have any desire to be listened 100%. But I really ask you to just take a couple of concepts or a couple of things that you can take with you from the lecture that you are going to listen. So don't be too ambitious to memorize every word that I will speak to, but try to find a couple of concepts or phrase that you would remember. And you can, you would really wrestle with those things. Then you are succeeding. You are becoming a really successful listener to the lecture. So this is an invitation for you to encounter the concept or, the phrase that would make you really think. And before I get into my lecture, I wanted to know how many people are using English as your first language. Can I see the hands? Okay, just hold it there. I need some kind of statistic. Okay. Okay, thank you. About 30 plus something. So, which means that majority people here, the English is not their mother tongue. Which means whenever we communicate, English should not be the measurement of, measuring the one's intelligence. I had to change my language 2 times. I left Korea for Germany. All of a sudden, I become sort of a second-class citizen because my German has an accent, and there are so many people who cannot understand my German, and I was really shocked that I can be seen as an inferior person because I have thought myself as a very intelligent person. I was very proud of myself when I was in Korea because I didn't have any kind of problem communicating with people, both in writing and speaking. So I never thought myself as sort of a class of human being. But all of a sudden, I was dislocated. First with my language. And then I had to change my language from German to English. So when I speak in English first couple of years, I had sort of a habit that, I put all the verb in the last part of the sentence. So my German and English got all mixed, in terms of the writing and also speaking. So I had to struggle with the language, how language becomes such a powerful means of, the dominating peoples. So whenever I come to this kind of so-called international conference, always I notice that English speaker becomes, language holder becomes the power holder. So I do not know how to solve this fundamental dilemma. But as long as you are aware of this dilemma, that's the beginning of solution. So I was one of the plenary speakers at the previous WCC assembly in Brazil. I made a suggestion that WCC should have a language committee. That how do we handle this language issue, not only all the multiple sort of communication skill, but also we are talking about masculine languages and all the inclusive language issues. So it is, we have a long way to go to achieve authentic meaning of unity, which is the goal of ecumenism. So, only 30 plus something people are, they are the person who are using English without having any problem. But rest of us, majority, they are struggling inside. So we have to practice how to communicate with other people, not only this verbal language, but also, this human sort of way of communicating. So we have to practice our sort of level of patience and also trying to understand what others try to communicate with us. So we exercise a kind of sensitivity to others. The topic that I am dealing with is, I'm trying to find my PowerPoint, which is, okay, here. Do you see? One of my former research assistants, one day sent me a link. And the title of the link is Death by PowerPoint. I think Adam Brett, who was my research assistant. Perhaps he may have thought that, my PowerPoint is, too much. It's not effective. So since that time, my PowerPoint is very simple. And according to that, the link, Death by PowerPoint, if you put more than 5 words on one slide, it's not effective. You don't have to have the PowerPoint. So my PowerPoint will be really simple. And if you just look at the screen, you are losing this opportunity to look at me. So, this background is just for your entry point, but your arrival point is me. So just try to look at me. And I will not try to just read through my paper. So the title of my presentation is, can I make that a full screen? Yeah. By doing this one? Yeah. Okay.
Click slideshow up top.
Let me see. I'm using Macintosh, so can I? This one? This one?
Down there.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Christianity in Korea Revisited. That's my working title. A Critical Reappraisal as an Act of Prophetic Criticism. A bit long subtitle. When I'm asked to present about Christianity in Korea, I had to think about, what kind of layers that I am going to present. Because Christianity cannot be a, unitary entity. Christianity in Korea, has so many faces. So what kind of, the aspect of Korean Christianity I have to present? So I had to struggle. I could either introduce all the glorious aspect of Korea. Korea have so many mega churches. Being proud of this, growth. And there are aspects that, people from outside would admire about Korean churches. But I think that can be done by others as well. So it doesn't have to be me to show the glorious, bright side of Korean Christianity. So instead, I will take the position from Cornel West, one of my thinkers that I always, consult. He used the term prophetic criticism. So according to him, the prophetic criticism is to keep track of the complex dynamics of institutional and other related power structures in order to disclose options and alternatives for transformative praxis. I will read it again for those who need to listen again. Cornel West calls prophetic criticism is to keep track of the complex dynamic of institutional and other related power structures in order to disclose options and alternatives for transformative praxis. So, therefore, my presentation takes the form of prophetic criticism to revisit the earlier silences and margins in order to reorient ourselves, who identify ourselves as people of faith, to be more specific, people of Christian faith, in order to attend to what is beneficial to those on the margin and to our liberation in the multiple voices and languages, her stories and his stories. So this is the kind of methodology or approach that I will take to present Christianity in Korea and also religion in Pacific. So there is a need for the prophetic the criticism that whenever we analyze a kind of religion or Christianity in a society, in Korean society. And I present some aspect of the Korean Christianity that has some kind of more universal, kind of wider context or wider relevance, limited not only to Korean context, but also the other context that you may engage to. I think Dr. Im briefly mentioned about this Confucian aspect of Korean Christianity. The scholars of religion, they would say that the Korean Christianity is spiritually shamanized and ethically Confucianized. So you may have to see the two really big phases of Korean Christianity: the spiritually shamanized and ethically very Confucianized. And I'm going to focus on this Confucian phase of Christianity. And of course, there are so many different Confucian phases in Christianity in Korea, but I will introduce a couple of phases of Korean Christianity. And if you try to measure a kind of gender equality in a given society or a given community, what would you do? what would be the measurement that you would, utilize to measure whether a society or church or community is, achieving or gender equality? What would be the very critical measurement that you would use? Whenever I ask a question, don't feel guilty when you do not respond. Because the point of my asking question is not to just get the answer, but it is an invitation for you to think further. So you don't have to feel guilty that you don't give the direct answer. So what would be the measurement for you to see that this gender equality level in a society or in a church? One of the very critical measurements that people use is that to see the decision-making process and body. It's not just whose voice is louder or the weaker. You have to look at the decision-making process and body. That with the genders, they are sharing this decision-making power in a very appropriate way. If you look at the decision-making bodies and process in Korean Christianity, you have to look at the two very sort of source of authority. One is a teaching space. The other one is, what would be the other one? Teaching and preaching. Yes, these are the two poles that are source of the authority. So the teaching authority, who is exercising the teaching authority, or who is exercising the preaching authority? That's a kind of the site that you have to look into, and whether they are really exercising the gender equality in their decision-making body and process. I don't have to go to the detail, but you don't see any women dean or president of theological schools in Korea. Whatever denomination you go to, is dean and president are all male. And bishops, if you go to this church side, the bishops, the head of this church or denominational office are 100% male. So which means that women consist of 70% of Korean Christians, but all the leadership role or the members of decision-making bodies and process are exercised by male. That's one of the very evident, explicit influence of Korean, the Confucian phase of Christianity. One of the things that I want to ask you to remember is that people in Korea, when they ask what is your religion, then only 2% of Korean population would say Confucian. So one of the very prominent scholar of religion who is teaching at Ewha Women's University, according to him, 2% of Korean population, they would say Confucian. But more than 90% of Korean people, they are actually exercising Confucian. So when you look at people, how they interact one another, and how people are interacting in the home or workplace or in church, they are following the Confucian ethics. So when you meet a new person, they are really eager to know your age, because you have to set a kind of hierarchy, whether good or bad. If you are senior, would be good. And the way we end our sentence in Korean, it has a different form. You may not know this, but if you are Korean, you know what I mean. Because there's no a horizontal sort of way of communicating if your gender or if your age are different. So people are very conscious about your age. Of course, his gender is always evident. Not all the time, but people think it's really evident. So this, the Confucian influence is, I'm going to talk about these three things. Just remember, I didn't put up with the PowerPoint. One is patriarchy. Second is hierarchy. And third, I call it desire for purity. Desire for purity. And patriarchy, you know, it is, the simple definition of patriarch is this patriarch, these fathers, so-called fathers, dominate over, women. And hierarchy, you have to set sort of a rank based on gender, social class, and age. So always there is an visible hierarchy among people when they interact one another. They have to set up sort of kind of invisible hierarchy. Who is higher, who is lower. So based on that hierarchy, the way you address others will be different. So it is a very complex sort of way of setting the hierarchy, because it's not only just one thing. It's not like gender first or age first. Also, it has all different components to set a kind of hierarchy. So, for example, I'm a woman, so my hierarchy would be lower than men. But since I'm a professor, my high social class is sort of run through this gender hierarchy. So, and also age, run through different kind of, the hierarchy. So it is really delicate who is higher and who is lower. But Korean people are really sensitive about how to manage this kind of hierarchy. So this, and also the desire for purity, what I mean by it, for example, in Korea, Korea is one of the country that exports orphans to the foreign country a lot. That doesn't mean that Korean people are cold-hearted. That means that adoption is still some kind of taboo in Korea because of this lack of blood purity. So in order to have family members, you should have some kind of purity in blood, especially the father line. So very patrilineal blood, and it is really important in sort of this the forming of family. So adoption is still not a kind of exercise that Korean people do. So that's a kind of desire of purity. It has a kind of influence on how church operate, and also how theological schools operate. For example, our school that I'm teaching, we have like 31 denominations among student body. And faculty members, we have a Jewish faculty, we have a Catholic and Protestant, all different kinds of denomination. But when you go to Korean school, which are very denominationally tied, Methodist school, 100% faculty should be Methodist. Presbyterian, 100% students and faculty are Presbyterian. So there is that sense of, mingling together in terms of denomination or church tradition. So it has, from my perspective, it is a Confucian influence to maintain this so-called purity, that we don't mix. So if I apply it is impossible for me to apply for the position in Presbyterian church, the schools or other schools, because I'm a Methodist. So your label, your school becomes your permanent marker, and you don't mix together. So student body and faculty, they are all like pure in terms of denomination. So that's one of the examples that how Confucianism influenced in Korean churches and ecumenical bodies and theological schools. I come up with 3 features of Christianity. One is the religious exclusivism. And that Korea, we have so many religions, so many religions coexist. So in Korea, you do not just happen to become Christian. You have to, you choose to become Christian. So, and also there is a really competition among religions, different religions. So many I think that the majority Christians in Korea, they think that religious pluralism or religious inclusivism is a kind of heresy. And many Protestant churches, their pastors, they teach their members that even Catholic Church is a heresy. So this kind of religious exclusivism is such a problem in Korea that really make us hard to sort of actualize this ecumenical spirit. Because when you try to exercise ecumenical spirit, what do? What is the precondition for exercising ecumenical spirit? Exactly. You have to cross the sort of border of this denominational border, openness. So you have to sort of transverse these borders. So you have to really mix all denominations first. I mean, if you go to Methodist school, 100% faculty and students are Methodist. How do you experience the people from other denominations if just set aside religion? Even when you cannot embrace other denomination, how could you embrace the other religion? So this religious exclusivism, has some kind of second feature that denominational exclusivism is very serious matter. From my perspective, it is something that we Korean Christian leaders and teachers need to work on. But I don't see that there is a kind of hope in terms of this theological education can be really ecumenical unless they are willing to open the denominational borders to other denominations as well. I don't know which school will start first, but from my perspective, I have been teaching in Korea for many, many years, but I don't see any optimism. Of course, I can be hopeful, but I don't see any optimistic sort of prospect that this denominational exclusivism will be dismantled in a near future. So we need sort of young leaders like you, that you will be a leader in your own context and try to disseminate this ecumenical spirit that opens, to other denominations first. And then you can really extend this openness to other religions as well. And third feature is hierarchism that I mentioned already. Hierarchism based on gender, class, age. This is a really serious matter because when you go to church, perhaps the churches that you may visit tomorrow, the big churches, if you are poor economically, in the churches in a rural area, an urban area like Seoul, you cannot be the leader of the church. Most big churches, in order for you to be selected as a leader, elder, whatever you want, you should have a certain social class. Which, from my perspective, it is really against Jesus' spirit. And all the big churches, you have to have a certain sort of financial status to get elected as a leader of the church. So it is not your own personal faith. It is your social class that makes you leaders or non-leaders. So this is what I mean by this problem of this hierarchy based on your social class. And also, if you have a kind of social position in big church, you will be really invited to be a leader of the church. But if you do not have any social position that many people would admire, it is very unlikely that you get elected as a leader of the church. So this is the kind of problem that Korean Christianity has to struggle with. And also you may have heard about this, big churches that inherit their church to their sons or son-in-law. Have you heard about infamous stories in Korean churches? I see some, head nodding. This is one of the really serious disease in Korean Christianity. Because those mega churches, they think that this church is I own this church. It's like a CEO of a big, company. So you don't want to give this company to others. So they try to inherit this, big churches to their sons or, the son-in-law, not daughters. I have never heard that, the church tried to inherit the church to daughters or, daughter-in-law. So it is always either son or, son-in-law. And it is really dark side of Korean Christianity. And of course, there are so many things that you can see the bright side, so I don't have to illustrate a kind of bright side, but I'm trying to point out these are the kind of side that we have to work on. I'm just sort of extending more wider context. So in particular, Korean Christianity or the Christianity in general, where to go? And we have to remember that religion in general and Christianity in particular has played two roles, two functions in the history. One is oppression. The church, Christianity, has been the oppressor. So our Christianity has our history of sin. I don't have to name it, Inquisition, witch burning, Holocaust, and so many different, crusade. So we have a kind of history of sin that we have to attend to, and Korean Christianity as well. And also at the same time, the reason why we are still remaining in Christianity is that Christianity has been, playing the role of liberation. So how do we see these double functions of Christianity, and how do we maximize this the function of liberation? That's the task that we have to look for. So my last point that I want to make is that we have to think about two poles all the time. One is, so I'm not talking about just Christianity in Korea, I'm talking about Christianity in general, wherever you belong to. That Christianity or church is not a plan A, it is always plan B. So there is always disparity between the Christianity as it is and the Christianity as it ought to be. So Christianity to come. And this Christian to come, actually this notion of to come, I'm borrowing from Jacques Derrida, that you may have heard this name, Jacques Derrida. This notion of to come, it gives us a kind of permanent reference. So you cannot just, you cannot be just happy with what it is. You have to always look for the Christianity to come. The Christianity as it ought to be. There is always permanent reference to come. So the religion in general and Christianity in particular should be a religion of transformative and liberative process. I don't usually draw the adopt a kind of binary approach, the theology here and praxis here. I believe that theology, good theology, always is a good process. And also I don't draw the binary between desk and outside desk. Because unless you theorize or theologize what is happening in the world, you cannot persuade others to join the work for the justice and peace and the equality that we are working for. Because justice, equality, peace, it is very complex issues. So theologizing and good theology, this discussion on the desk is already practice. Because theory is good practice, because it operates our perception. It helps us to complexify, diversify all the discourses that we are talking about, justice, peace, equality, so that you can apply what you learn, what you discuss on the table in your own concrete context. So I was talking about especially the Korean context, but I hope there are always sort of implication that you can apply in a wider context. So am I good? Can I spend like a couple of minutes? Or I should finish? Okay. I was going to ask you to just share what you have, like one concept or a phrase with me. But I will ask later on if you have time. Thank you very much.